All right. So I wasn't gonna stream today at first, but um, throughout work, all I can really think about is Artifact right now. So I figured a lot of people have been asking for an updated tutorial or a tutorial in general and haven't been able to find my last one on how to optimize Tabletop Simulator so that you can practice Artifact for a month plus before you go into the beta. Hold on, this music is actually a little bit too loud for me. Let's just turn it off entirely. There we go. We can live without music. So the idea again is to do a quicker tutorial on how to set up your tabletop simulator so that you can most quickly and effectively use it to practice Artifact. And there's been a couple of updated discoveries that me and my friends that have been playing on it have discovered. So this is a just a collection of all of those things. So first thing that I'm going to do is go into the game. You're going to want to buy it on Steam and then in the Steam Workshop search for Artifact-Dota card game if you haven't already. Once you're in the splash screen, what you want to do is go to create. And I'm going to do, I would recommend doing single player first because there's no way that you're going to right out of the gate do a multiplayer game with your friends unless you've played once or twice. So we're going to go single player first, go to Workshop, Artifact-Dota card game, load. I'm gonna swing my notes over down here. So one thing you'll notice right away is that it's it's upside down in this current build. So just use right click and then you can move your mouse to swivel. Now the first thing that I like to do is I like to set up my camera. So how you're going to do that is in order to set a camera, you're going to press control and then the number in which you want to allocate that to. So this is probably a good nice holistic view of the board, you want to press Control 1. That's how I like to do it. Later on, you can use your own hotkeys. Control 2 for first lane. Control 3. Let me zoom out a little bit. Control 3 for second lane. Redo this one. And then for the third lane, you're going to do Control 4. Radiant Shop, Control 5. Dire Shop, Control 6. And it is a little bit disorienting at first where you have control, camera 2 on 1, 3 on 2, 4 on 3, but honestly, you get used to it. If it really bugs you, I would recommend just changing it so it's 1, 2, 3 and whatever else. Afterwards, assuming that you're going to play multiplayer or a single player rather, you're going to want to change oh my God, here we go. You want to change the hand zones. So, let's get rid of that. And how I did that was I left click in order to delete, left click again and drag to set the new zone. Let's left click the red, go over here, set another zone, and then we're going to right click this so that it's the color that you want it to be. Let's see here. There we go. So now you'll notice that when we change colors, you're always going to be facing the right orientation, which is really helpful because let's just take a random card here. Let's and the hand zones allow you to drag the cards into your zone so that it pops up and it's always persisting at the bottom of your screen. And if you want to zoom in, another good hotkey, you want to press Alt over whatever to zoom in. So either that be a card, you can zoom in here. Just press Alt while you're hovering over it. So let's get rid of that. I'm going to go over a couple of essential shortcuts before we get started on the actual board setup. If you want to control and paste, all you have to do is hover. You don't have to click. And when it's highlighted, press Control C like any other program, Control V. Now, you want to be careful if you are clicking something already, right? Or if you have a couple things highlighted and you'll see that in yellow. And then you also hover this and you forget that this is highlighted currently and you press Control C thinking you're only going to copy this. You're going to end up copying everything because it acts as if you appended that to your copy list. So make sure that if you have one-off things that you want to copy, click somewhere, deselect. I'm not really sure if escape doesn't. Yeah, escape doesn't work. So you just left click somewhere else. Make sure that you're not selecting something. All right. So now that we have that out of the way, if you want to scale something, hover over it, press the plus sign and hold it if you want to make it bigger, and the minus sign if you want to make it smaller. And that's going to come really handy when there's going to be times where you're going to want to resize something just for clarity. Because as you'll find when you're playing Artifact using Tabletop Simulator, you have to make it extremely noticeable what you're trying to get across at a first glance. Otherwise, you're going to lose track of things. So we have Control C, V, minus plus, Alt, Control number, Shift number. Okay. And then lastly, if you want to pan the camera, you can use WASD, WASD, for up, down, left, right. I personally like to use mouse 3. You click and hold and then you drag. For people who have used any 3D editing programs, this is going to come a lot more intuitive. I pretty much never use WASD, but for those of you who aren't, WASD is also a good way of controlling your camera. Lastly, the other essential shortcuts. If you want to group items, you highlight and press G. This is not going to work for those. So let's get a couple of these over here. I'm just copying. I'm highlighting, and then I'm going to press G. It automatically groups up into the same object. I'm going to hover over and delete. Press the delete button. That's also a good hotkey to know. Now let's say I have this group and I want to flip it, which oftentimes you're going to want to conceal your cards. You just press F over it when you're hovering over it. And then lastly, if you hover over your deck and you press R, that's randomized. And that goes with dice too. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order to just show you what R does with dice. I'm going to hover over it, press plus, and hold it down to make it bigger. And then I can press R while I'm hovered over it to randomize. So that goes with either a deck or a dice or other things where you need to have chance involved. And you'll see a couple of those instances in the near future. So we have our camera set up now, and we've reviewed all of the different essential shortcuts. And the last thing I would want to add to the essential shortcuts is when you're hovering over your deck, let's just say I had 5 cards left in my deck. If you wanted to draw 1 card, just hover over it and press the number 1. It's going to automatically append itself to your hand zone. Let's say I wanted to draw 2, just hover over and press 2. There you go. That's gonna really speed things up whenever you're trying to draw. Otherwise, you would just be manually doing it. And I did that for my first maybe 10 hours on Tabletop Simulator, and it was not very fast. So we've done player setup, camera setup, essential shortcuts. Now let's set up the board. Let me clean this up a little bit. Okay, that's already clean. It's fine. We're gonna sort out the item deck first. Let's set aside the 4 base consumables because this left part right here is always the secret shop. This one right here is your custom item deck, which I'll get into when we talk about deck building. And then this one is your base consumables, which is just these 4. Where as of right now, and we've seen quite a bit of gameplay from PAX now. Golden ticket's probably not part of that base set. So you're gonna want to take these, group them, flip, just go ahead, drag it over here and copy, put it over here. Next, you're going to want to do your custom items. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we will be going over the deck building in a second, but let's just assume I take 3 of these, 3 of these, and 3 of these as well. So that's 9. Let's group, group. Come on. Oh, there we go. I'm going to flip. Let's say this is my item deck right here. I'm going to click down. Whenever you're dealing with grouped objects, you want to left click and hold, and then you can drag. So I can either click and drag or I'm going to copy, which is my preferred method. Just do it over there. Let's assume that both decks have the same exact item card, just for simplicity's sake. Then lastly, every single item except for the base consumables, you're going to want to add to your secret shop deck. That is speculative, but from what we've seen from the gameplay, that seems to be consistent. So let's highlight all of these. Let's group them, flip, go over here. Let's copy this by hovering over, making sure that nothing is selected. Put it over here. Let's just shuffle these real quick. So all you have to do is hover over this. You don't have to select random, random, random. random, random, random. Then that's just for good measure. So we have our shop set up now. This is going to be really critical. Setting up your dice is probably the most important thing to me with speeding up your games, just because it makes it so much easier to do everything. So what I'm doing is I'm just left click and dragging one of each because they'll eventually come in handy. Maybe not on a per game basis, but if you play a handful of games, it's definitely going to come up. Group them, just click anywhere and just shake them up a little bit so you can group them up for your convenience. And then you're going to right click while they're all selected, go to toggles and get rid of grid. You'll see why that comes into play later. It's just so that it doesn't forcefully put itself in a place where you don't want it to go. Afterwards, you're going to take a copy of this white deck, put it in the middle lane, and just make it bigger, just so it's easier to hover over and roll. And I like to have one in each lane. Some people don't like to do that just because it clutters it up a little bit, but I like to have it in quick access, and I find that if you do it this way, it's a lot faster. Then what we're going to do is do the roads. So before we used to think it was one of each. Now we know that it's 25% left, two instances of straight, so 50%, and then the last 25% is right. So you want to have to do this. And what I'm doing again is hovering, just copying and making sure I don't have anything else copied, and just pasting. Let's group these, flip them. Let's click and drag this over here and make copies for each lane. And let's organize this a little bit. I like to have it on the left here and then the dice on the right. Okay. And then afterwards, take a copy of this and do the opposite direction. And you notice how it only flips a little bit? You want to click up on the top right button and change that to 90, which is the maximum you can do. So now it only takes 2 presses. The reason I do that is because we're eventually going to be using these in the appropriate lane, and it's easier to make sure that they're orientated the right way. So let's copy this new rotated version over here, over here. All right, let's go back to my notes here. Then you're going to set up the color of the dice. How we like to do it whenever I scrim is red is for attack, as in aggression. Black is for armor, as in some sort of metal or metallic material. And green is for health, as in, trees and life and all that. And then blue is it's a special occasion where if you have a Luna on the board, I like to use this to keep track of how many charges she has for her eclipses. Afterwards, what you're also going to want to add is take a copy of this colored dice, right click and go to color tint. We're going to use purple for the hero's ability cooldown, and then we're going to use pink for the item ability cooldown. And lastly, we're going to take one more, make that teal, and that's going to be for Necronomicon. Obviously, these are niche situations, but it is helpful to have them handy, and what you can do afterwards is save your instance of this game so you never have to set up again. So once you do this once, you're good to go. I'm not sure if it automatically updates, so you're probably not going to want to stick to the same build for longer than maybe a couple of days, because shout out to King Spark, aka Zarthben. He's the one who created this mod, and he updates it really frequently with, custom Photoshop beautiful card art. So shout out to him. That guy has been a godsend for all of us who've been actively playing this. Afterwards, what you're going to want to do is make 3 d20s. And let's do it for attack. And this one for armor. And this one for health. Because once you start playing some games, you'll realize that it's not rare to encounter double-digit values for those 3 in particular. So now that we have all the dice set up, lastly, what we're going to do for the board is put some sort of indicator of whose initiative it is. So I like to use the white pawn because it's nice and bright. And then all you got to do is size it up. You can't miss it. So I'll do, if I'm going, I'll pass, he pass, she pass, etc. Now that we have the board set up, let me check here. Ungrid all the dice, make a large white dice at each lane, get the direction stacks. Okay. Now if we're doing single player, and ignore this if you're doing multiplayer, if you're playing local with your friends at the same monitor, or if you're goldfishing, just theorizing against your own decks, do yourself a favor and just rotate these. Hover over this, press E, and oh, excuse me. That is another essential shortcut that I haven't been saying. Q, when you hover, is rotate left counterclockwise, and E is clockwise. So I'm just hovering over this and pressing E twice, making sure that I have a 90-degree rotation up here set. You don't want to rotate these because it's good to have the secret shop, custom item deck, and your base consumables, but this certainly you want to flip it. And there you go. You're all set over there. Card setup, we got all of those for the shops. Deck setup. I'm gonna use these pre-builts just because it's easier. These are the 4 pre-built decks from PAX. Once you start getting comfortable with the game, I believe it doesn't update, so you got to do it from time to time. Silver says it doesn't automatically update. So yes, if you have a convenient save and you want to make sure that you have all the latest updates, because again, Zarthben's really on top of his shit. He's been updating constantly, so there's probably a significant update every 2, 3 days, something along those lines. So don't stick to the same save for too long. But what these are is these are the pre-constructed decks at packs. So let's just say I'm playing this pack right here. Let's let's bring these heroes over. Oh, excuse me. There we go. First thing what you're going to do is place and in an artifact, when you make a deck, you're gonna specifically define which 3 of your heroes will be randomly deployed in that first round. Then you're gonna allocate a hero for the 4th and then the 5th, which would be uh, this. So let's say I place this 4th, CM 4th, and Zeus 5th. Crystal Maiden will be deployed in round 2. Zeus would be deployed in round 3, and the remainder will be deployed in round 1. So let's just say that these 3 were my first 3, and then I decided that this is my 4th hero. I like to use this middle divider, aka the river, and over here as the fountain. So the hero that's closest to the river is the one that you know is going to be spawning in 1 turn, and then the one that is going to be spawning in 2. And I say turn incorrectly. It should be rounds. So turns are individual actions in here, but rounds are the entire process. So this is going to spawn in round 2. This is going to spawn in round 3. The remainder, you're going to want to place in these middle 3 slots. What you can do, Silver says, what you can do is save SS and consumable decks as objects so that you can just copy them in the new update. Although if the cards themselves were changed, your shit out of luck. I agree with that. And Silver, he's been really on top of experimenting with different decks and copying them as objects. I've actually never done that before, just because I've been working with. I like to load up new ones and then make them. I'm basically being inefficient about it, which you should always do is once you have a set deck that you're going to be playing and scrimming against people with constantly, make it as an object. And I'll probably do that at the very end just because I haven't done it before, but we can figure it out together. And then let's say that was Dyer's deck. Let's left click and hold and drag it over. I like to put it next to the shops. It makes it really easy to access, but you might want to put it over in the corners. Do whatever you want to do. I'm going to make a copy over here. Let's just say I'm playing this deck, and these were my first 3 heroes. And then this is my 4th, and this is my 5th. Now, oh, they even have item decks. So let's swap that out. Let's get rid of this by deleting, and then put in the real one, and this is the item deck for Dyer. And there you go. Going back to my notes here. And my notes, I'm going to be putting this up at the end. So for anyone who wants to just skip to the end so that they can read and have like a step-by-step idea of how to do this after watching the VOD, I'll have it up available here. But here's a little diagram just so you remember. This indicates the left side for the fountain and then 1, 2, 3 for the middle. And then although we have pre-built decks, it's worth going over what constitutes a deck right now speculatively. We know that there's a minimum of 40 cards that are not heroes, that heroes don't count towards that 40 card count. So populate your deck with at least 40 cards, 15 of which are signature hero spells. You're going to have 3 of each for each hero that you have. So that is 15, and then you're gonna have a minimum of 25 other spells that are non-signature hero spells. And then right now, all the decks that we know of have 9 items in their core item deck, and you can have up to 3 duplicates in that item deck. So I can only have, say, 3 blink daggers. I couldn't have 4 in this item deck. And then again, you want to set the deck aside where it's easily accessible. I like it next to the shop. V1SQ says, "Cool, that will help me catch up." Yeah, man. In fact, I kind of wanted to do this at the beginning, but I airballed it. Um, Kind of just got done with work and working out, so I'm a little disoriented. But hopefully, this was, preparation is key to anything. As long as I have this, I shouldn't be fucking up too bad. Um, so yeah, let's. I'm gonna be putting this at the end so that you can reference it. After we set aside the deck where we can have it easily accessible, we're gonna begin the game. So the first thing that you want to do if you want to begin your game is just roll, and then Radiant is 1, 2, 3, Dire is 4, 5, 6. Radiant will have initiative. So that's what we were doing. We're rolling for initiative. Let's say it's 1 again, I would have initiative. If it somehow landed on a 4, then Dire would have initiative. And we only roll that once. So let's just say Dire has initiative for this game. Afterwards, you're going to click this convenient little button over here called Begin Game. And the creator of this mod, King Spark, aka Zarthben, aka Young God, he has written a little script that automates this process. So before, this whole thing would probably take like 5 or 10 minutes just to deploy, but he's went out of his way to make this easy for us. However, there is a caveat. Uh, at, at least as of September 6, 2018, and I'm hoping you're not playing Artifact on TTS past 2018. So just September 6th. There's a little bug when you press this button, and we might see it here. Yes, and we see it once. Oh, we see it twice, actually. From all the footage that we've seen, if there is an opportunity to block, you should be blocking. So, for example, this should never be skewed in this way where the creep is facing directly the tower, and this Keef, the bold, is facing the tower. They should always be lined up if there's 2 of each, or 1 of each, or 3 of each. How I would fix that is I'd probably just re-roll for it. So maybe just to keep it extremely fair. So let's just say I'm rolling for this. This would be this would be 4 over here, and then we would just roll for which one. So 1, 2, 3 would go against the melee creep. 4, 5, 6 would go against the melee creep. So it would be like this. And we'll do the same for here, except this is an easier fix. You would just scoot it over here because that's closest to what it would actually be. I would rotate these. Again, I'm on 90 degrees. Let's rotate these so that it's all facing me. When you're playing against a friend or scrimming against some random person, typically what you want to do is keep your own orientations. So if you were playing a multiplayer and you were playing Dire, you'd probably flip it this way. But if we're goldfishing playing against ourselves, we'll keep it all the same orientation. And then the very last thing you're going to want to do is randomize your deck and then just draw 5 cards for yourself and the opposite team. So what I did is hover over and then I pressed 5 because I'm drawing 5 cards. Let's say I wanted to reverse that. There's a convenient little button over here that says rewind time, and it's not a strict rewind one action, which is kind of annoying at times, but it is convenient in this situation at times where it's by time, 10 seconds of time. So I'm probably going to have to click this 4 or 5 times just to get back because I was talking. There we go. So again, I'm hovering over this and pressing 5. Let's switch colors. Now I'm Dire. R for randomize, press 5. And now I have 5 here. And then the very last thing you got to do is enjoy your game. I'm not going to go over the rules of the game right now because I want to keep it extremely concise because the ultimate goal is just to publish this as a VOD so that we can build up the community of people who can use TTS comfortably because the more you use TTS to play Artifact, the more comfortable you're going to be, the more quickly you're able to facilitate games. And when you're playing multiplayer, what you can do is let's say that someone joined and you would add them to Steam and then they can join your lobby in Tabletop Simulator. their name is going to pop up right here. You can right click, let's just say hypothetically I would right click, and there's going to be a button that says promote. And what that allows them to do is they can do all of the administrative actions that you've been doing, such as copying. Other than that, I don't think that there's any essentials that you have to go over. If you maybe follow along, have this on a second monitor, pause it occasionally and follow along, or just watch it and then go back to this video, and I'm gonna leave up these notes right here. You'll get the hang of it after 2 games, I promise you. This shit is here. What's the easy solution to this? Let's do this. That's too much information to put on one stream. Add zoom out. Let's do this. There we go. Easy. Player setup. Where's player setup? Oh shit. Okay. Mm. Board setup so I can go up to green. There we go. Black. Disable grid. Oh, thank you. Wait, disable grid slash snap slash sticky for dice. Okay. Thank you. I actually have never done that before, so I'm gonna go ahead and trust Imp Game Boss. Thank you for that tip.